Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. If you're new to my channel, I'm covering the latest war between Iran and Israel for the past couple of days, generally with the live streams, but I'm starting to have also clips as well. And I also cover the updates in relation to the genocide in Gaza alongside other events all across the world. Tonight we're going to be talking about the latest statements and actions that took place both from the Israeli side and from the Iranian side, alongside the very dangerous statements that came from the United States. What are we expecting that the United States will do, and whether that will lead to something greater than what we have seen so far. I posted a video earlier on in the morning about the Iranian attack on the headquarters of the Israeli Mossad and the Israeli 8,200 unit and the Amman base in Israel, the Military Intelligence Directorate, with total destruction in these areas alongside other attacks that were carried out by Iran. They're having a diversified way of attack now on Israel. In the initial days, we saw Iran launching a wide range of missiles all at once, almost in one go during the nighttime. What Iran is doing now is attacking Israel almost at every point of the day. Morning, afternoon, evening, night, and dawn. This is clearly a strategy coming from Iran to exhaust the Israeli state as much as possible, and also to apply more pressure on all aspects and all walks of life in Israel, whether it's economically, whether it's militarily, whether it's from the air defense systems, keeping Israel on high alert for as long as possible. Today, after that initial attack on the Mossad headquarters and the Israeli Amman headquarters that I spoke about earlier, they carried out an attack in the vicinity of, at least, that's the least we can say, the Israeli nuclear facility in Dimona. This was one of the images that was published from Israel. Now, mind you, there's a lot of censorship going on in Israel, but this was one of the images that was published in relation to the attack that Iran carried out on the Dimona nuclear facility. The people, the media, well, there's not a lot of talk about this. Iran, from their perspective, they said they targeted the location. From the image that we're seeing, they're saying it's within the vicinity. There can't be a direct confirmation, of course, so long as we can't see an actual image of the location. However, this is within the vicinity, and this was also circulating all across media outlets and on social media as well. Meaning that Iran is leaving no location untouched. If they're targeting the Dimona nuclear facility in Israel, that means Iran has no real limits when it comes to attacking Israel now in retaliation for the Israeli attacks. Israel is still attacking in Iran. They also assassinated general today in Iran. From an Iranian perspective, they're saying that they're getting hold of the operatives that are working for the Zionists inside of Iran, and they're sentencing some of them immediately too. Now, another statement, another very important statement came out today from the Iranian chief of staff. He mentioned a few things that could indicate that things could get worse from now on. He said that our previous operations against the enemy were operations to deter, and we will soon carry out punitive operations against them. That's the first statement that he made, and he made a couple of other statements. He told the residents of the occupied territories not to make yourselves victims of Benjamin Netanyahu. He said that all of the assassinations that were carried out against the Iranian civilians and leaders and the scientists, it will only increase our will to punish the Zionists. He also sent an ultimatum to all of the residents of Haifa and Tel Aviv to evacuate, to leave immediately. And then he also made another statement in relation to Israel, saying that our people have never been subjected to any aggression, and the Zionist entity will be held accountable for its criminal records, for its criminal actions against the Iranian people. Now, subjected as in submitted, the meaning. That was probably a flawed translation here. And they also said that a 10th round of attacks is being carried out on Israel. Another very important statement was made by the Iranian president as well, who was also having a harsher tone against Israel, now saying that more punishment will come towards the Israelis. In the meantime, the United States and Israel are both escalating. They're talking as if, you know, we're gonna go up until we completely finish Iran. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump made some statements, again, that are contrary to what we heard yesterday. Yesterday, we just heard this report over here. The United States tells allies it won't join a war unless Iran targets Americans. But today, Donald Trump clearly had a shift, and he posted this on social media. Unconditional surrender. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, at least not for now, but we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attentions on this matter. We now have complete and total control of skies over Iran. Donald Trump is speaking as if, you know, him and Israel are the same thing. We, despite the fact that the United States hasn't declared that it's participating in the war so far. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than good old USA, according to Donald Trump. That is coming simultaneously with the reports from Israel that Donald Trump is due to declare that he's entering the war with Israel. We had a couple of reports in Israeli media. One of them was a report in the Israeli Ynet. They said that Israel estimates the United States will soon join an attack against Iran. Israel needs the Americans to destroy the nuclear facility at Fordo, which is well fortified in the mountains. Netanyahu will hold consultations with the small ministerial forum that is managing the war. Concern about Iran's extreme actions and assessment, America joining within hours to days. The Israelis are expecting the Americans to join within hours or days. Now, Donald Trump, he was already in a meeting not long ago. A report said that he was discussing the potential of joining Israel. Now, according to this report, they are confirming that the participation of the United States, if that is going to be declared by Donald Trump, will be at the lowest level possible. It will not be an all-out participation from the United States. So we could be potentially talking about the United States assisting Israel with the heavy bombers that can attack Fordo, with the Moab, what they call as well, to target Fordo and target other fortified locations that Israel is interested in targeting in Iran. That could be the first step, according to this article and according to other assessments too. However, again, when we want to talk about Donald Trump, you're talking about a man who constantly contradicts himself. Donald Trump is a man who made his campaign, he sold himself as a man who is anti-war. For example, this was one of his previous tweets. The United States has spent $8 trillion fighting and policing in the Middle East. Thousands of our great soldiers have died or have been badly wounded. Millions of people have died on the other side. Going into the Middle East is the worst decision ever made. That was in 2019, but Donald Trump made other statements in his campaign rallies. Donald Trump was saying that he wants to bring peace. Donald Trump said that he wants to end all wars. Donald Trump wanted to be written down in history as the peacemaker. He was looking for a Nobel Peace Prize. He was promising people that in the first day in his office, he's going to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. And actually, no war would have happened if he was in office, neither between Russia and Ukraine, nor between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Therefore, it's very difficult to understand what Donald Trump really intends to do. That makes Donald Trump a person who is unreliable. He lacks a lot of credibility, and he has something that he tries to use to his advantage, and that is the element of unpredictability. Now, whether he's realizing that that's negatively affecting him, does he care, does he not care, because now he is the actual president, we don't know that. But what we know for sure is, well, Donald Trump made many statements before that, well, look at Gaza, all hell will break loose, release them now, all of that. Then reports said that he was actually the one who forced Benjamin Netanyahu into the ceasefire agreement that Israel later breached. So are we going to take it seriously, or are we not going to take it seriously? Is it part of the American psychological warfare that's happening? We will only know once the United States, and if the United States goes ahead and participates, and also at what level. At the end of the day, Iran had an attack, a terrorist attack carried out against it from Israel. Iran is a sovereign nation. They are fully entitled to have a nuclear project. They are fully entitled to make their own decisions. And they also had an agreement previously with the United States that Donald Trump himself withdrew from because of Israeli pressure and because of the pressure of people like Benjamin Netanyahu and the Zionist lobby in the United States. So the United States has no excuse whatsoever. Iran did not start this. Iran practiced a lot of restraint. Iran did not attack Israel up until it was actually attacked. And all of their previous attacks were retaliation against Israeli terror attacks against them. And now Israel, all of a sudden, all of these attacks against the Iranian civilians, Iranian infrastructure, Iranian nuclear sites, and the United States is threatening to participate with them against Iran. Another attempt, or another argument could be, is that, well, Donald Trump is actually trying to use all of that pressure that's happening now for the negotiations. Because from his perspective, well, Israel is attacking Iran now. I'm in a strong position. I still haven't done anything against Iran, apart from, of course, all of the weapons are American at the end of the day. And, undeniably, there's American support there logistically from the American side to Israel, but the United States hasn't participated directly. There are army moves from the United States. There are forces being deployed. Nimitz is coming to the region. Reports of United States airplanes coming to the region. But all of that wouldn't mean anything unless the United States starts to participate. Iran so far hasn't attacked any of the United States bases. They haven't attacked any personnel. As a matter of fact, it's Israel trying to have Americans killed, by the way. Like the statement that the Israeli official made a few days back. If an American dies in the consulate or embassy in Israel, that would increase the likelihood of the United States joining in. As in almost hinting that we might actually carry out something so that the United States can join in some sort of a false flag. So it isn't very clear. Yesterday, he told the allies, we're not going to join the war. Macron said that. Trump
denied saying that, typical of Trump. He's trying to kind of play on both sides, whether it's to please the Zionist lobby and please the America First line, you know, because in terms of Republicans, you have the people who don't want this war, and you have people who are interested in having a war, and they have their own argument. However, in the United States, it's not really going very well, because Trump, at the end of the day, he needs public support. Many things are being leaked now, like previous reports and confirmations that the US intelligence had from Tulsi Gabbard, stating that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. And that was just several months back. Assessments from the top United States security and intelligence establishments that Iran is not establishing a nuclear weapon. And his response today was that, I don't care. Simply, I don't care what she says. Then we have moves. We have moves from United States senators to force a debate and a Congress approval before anything like that happens. You can't just simply decide to take the Americans to go and fight for you without having consensus, without having approval, just like that. More and more people are joining the congressman who started this campaign to have a legislation that the United States cannot actually go on a war unless, you know, it passes through Congress. And CBS reported earlier today that lawmakers from both parties are moving to limit Trump's ability to order strikes against Iran. All of these things are very important, meaning that Donald Trump will not necessarily have an easy time trying to confirm this attack for the sake of a genocidal maniac called Benjamin Netanyahu, who did not even consider the Israelis with this attack, by the way. Benjamin Netanyahu did this attack primarily for his own interest. He was facing a lot of pressure internally to reach an agreement with Gaza, and then he all of a sudden went into this war with Iran, despite the fact that Donald Trump himself told him he didn't give him a green light. So, in short, a lot of what's being published represents nothing from the truth on the ground. If we want to understand what's happening on the ground, we need to monitor everything as and when to try and understand if the United States will go with Israel or not. Now, in relation to Benjamin Netanyahu could be having certain escalations also to cover other things. For example, Israel withdrew Division 98 from the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian resistance has been landing severe blows on the Israeli terrorists in Gaza, who are still massacring people. In the past 24 hours, they killed over 100 people, most of whom were trying to look for aid in what's called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, run by the Americans. The Israelis start to shoot them when they're carrying flour with them. So now Netanyahu is saying that there is significant progress. Officials are saying there's significant progress. Benjamin Netanyahu, several days back, said that there is a breakthrough in negotiations, and then a regional source said that both sides are showing leniency, but are afraid of the consequences of the confrontation with Iran. American sources are also telling the families of the prisoners of war in Israel, we're on the way to something big. And the report in Israel said, regional sources said this morning that there is a very significant progress towards a deal and agreement in the Strip and an end to the war in Gaza. Both sides have shown flexibility, but are afraid of the confrontation with Iran or what's happening between Israel and Iran. The Israeli delegation is not yet leaving for Doha for fear that it will slow down the talks, not speed them up. American officials have told the families of the hostages in recent days, that there is a very positive breakthrough. There are very positive signs of breakthrough. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in the past 24 hours that there is a breakthrough that allows progress. But one non-Israeli source said that the issues are much broader and are about effectively ending the war. The messages that are being conveyed relate to what will happen in Gaza, not just in the first phase of rescuing between 8 and 10 hostages alive, but for all of the deal. So now Netanyahu is actually showing signs that he's open for an all-out deal inside of the Gaza Strip, simultaneously with this war that's happening in Iran, and him declaring that this is the main war. And again, it could be part of his campaign for his own interest to deviate from what's happening in Gaza, because Gaza is now secondary to Israel. Israel officially declared that the main front that it's battling now is Iran, not Gaza. And it could be easier for him, even with his coalition, to try and reach a deal and also sell it, leak it, or, pass it by as if, we had to do it as secondary now. We have Iran, but it will mean we're going to end the war. Something that was considered a totally red line for Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's something that the Palestinian resistance always demanded. Now, is Netanyahu able to reach a deal, or did he decide that there's a limit to the attack that's going to happen in Iran, and after that attack is done, he's going to reach a deal? So far, from what the Israelis are explaining and what the Israelis are saying and what the Israelis are doing, it doesn't look like they're backing down whatsoever with Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu started this campaign by saying, we want Iran to roll back on the threat on the state of Israel. So in a way, we want to kind of make the threat of Iran less severe on us as a country. Then he added 2 objectives, in effect, of the war. Whether he made them official or not, he stated them at the end of the day, which means they are now objectives. And these objectives are destroying the Iranian nuclear program, Iran's strategic missile capabilities, and also taking down the Iranian establishment. And in relation to taking down the Iranian establishment, again, sometimes Netanyahu would say that, and sometimes he won't. But let's remember, it began with Benjamin Netanyahu saying, we want Iran to take a step back we want to basically roll back on Iran with the level of threat on the state of Israel. Now, moving back to the escalation, because if Benjamin Netanyahu is all of a sudden declaring all of these objectives, and he's really pushing for the United States to participate, trying to convince other countries to join into, and him going into this war supposedly without receiving a green light from Donald Trump, that shows that Benjamin Netanyahu is looking for something long-term, not short-term. Even if there would be a ceasefire with Gaza, he would continue with these exchanges with Iran in hope that there would be something to change the establishment. They're playing on some, opposition figures and what have you, hoping that they could change something in the long run. And there have been many sabotage groups, terror cells inside of Iran operating for Israel that are now being held by the Iranians. Moving back to the effect of the attacks that happened today, in Israel, there's total denial. Israel is denying that the Mossad base was hit. Israel is denying that the Amman base was hit. Israel is denying that anything important has been hit. And they are taking way harsher measures against anyone who posts anything online. They're imprisoning people, they are confiscating equipment, and they're banning Israeli and international media from broadcasting live from certain locations that Israel is expected to see missiles land in. But nevertheless, more and more images were published about the after effects on these sites. in Israel and in international media too. This was one of them here, and Iranian media also reported that several of the operatives were killed in the attacks that they conducted against the bases of the Israeli Mossad and the Israeli Aman too. Now, there were other problems. Israel, yesterday, and I posted in my video earlier on, it had a very serious disaster happening with the Iron Dome when it started to land on Israel. It happened, of course, before, but yesterday, only yesterday, there were 2 videos documenting that. Now, that was only what has been documented. Now, there was good reason to believe that something happened in the system. So either it was hacked, either there was some sort of sabotage in the system, or it went completely insane, because 2 of the missiles landed in the Nevatim base, and one of the missiles of the Iron Dome landed in Tel Aviv. And this is just what has been recorded. But today there was a very interesting report in the Wall Street Journal, in the Washington Post actually, that Israel from now on will have to choose what it intercepts, because it's running very, very short on the air defense missiles. And the United States, it has very limited supply on all of these missiles, whether it's talking about THAAD, where you're talking about Arrow that they jointly produce with Israel, and all of the other missiles too. So from an Israeli perspective, they're becoming more and more exposed. And the problem that they're facing now is the fact that Iran is diversifying the attacks and not only targeting them at one specific time. For example, in the initial days, or in the first day primarily, most of the attack happened throughout the night. Iran started to change strategy because they want to find weaknesses, they want to test vulnerabilities, they want to see what they can do, and they also give space for, well, their operatives too, to have an impact on the systems. And there are clearly some breaches happening. And today, Iran published some videos about the moments that it was launching missiles on its 10th round of attacks on Israel earlier today. Let's have a look. There were other videos published as well from Iran today about these missiles being launched, and several videos were published today. Some of the videos that were leaked were circulating on social media, mind you, with the level of suppression, and this was one of them over here. Let's have a look. Now, one thing that is very interesting in this video in particular is the fact that there was no interception whatsoever. So, Iran, the way it's attacking, the timing of the attacks of Iran, what type of missiles it's using, the hacking of the Israeli air defense systems, all of these things are clearly coordinated. Because if missiles are not being intercepted, if sirens are being heard in many cases for no reason. Last night, remember, all of the alerts that came from the United States CENTCOM, from China, from Russia, from Germany too, about an imminent massive attack and then Iran decided to have another attack in the morning. All of these things are combined, and clearly the Iranians are playing multiple games with the Israelis. They're not just using one way of attack on Israel, they're using different ways, and that is causing a lot of damage inside of Israel, especially with how much it's exhausting its resources to try and intercept, and also in how it's affecting the population in general. That's something very important. You talk about people who are being ordered to remain in shelters 24/7. Millions of people. People are not having enough space. People are looking for shelters now. And the problem is some of the Iranian missiles were participating in the shelters. Now, of course, Israel did not share or confirm that the Israeli Military Intelligence Directorate was hit, nor that the Mossad was hit, even though we published those videos. I'll hopefully share them again soon. But there were other leaks today coming from Israel about the moments when the Israeli Amman base was targeted, as we can see in this video over here. So again, that was one of the videos that was leaked hours after the confirmation. And from Iran's perspective, they're launching more images and more footage of them launching the missiles. Let's have a look at another video that Iran published today when they were launching the missiles on the Israeli entity. Let's have a look. Now, of course, the attack that happened again in Glilot, in the Glilot area, there were other videos that I haven't shared with you previously. This was one of them here. So more videos came during the day about these attacks, and more people were revealing some of the videos from an Iranian perspective. They released one video of the missile that was launched during the day at the time to attack the Dimona facility in a very short video. This was the video over here. That was the moment that they launched the missile that targeted the Dimona facility. Now, again, in relation to Dimona, the only thing that was published from Israel is an image, this image, that confirmed that the missile landed within the vicinity of the nuclear facility in Dimona. But again, no confirmation, no elaboration, no even mention in the Israeli media about it even being hit. And again, Israel is punishing everyone who is trying to publish any sort of information in relation to the targets, the targets and the location. And despite that, we had some people saying that they targeted the Mossad place and they targeted the Mossad building, as we can see in this video over here.
2 מטר מהבית שלי. וואי, וואי, וואי. על המוסד, הצליחו על המוסד אפילו.
So in that video, the man was saying they also succeeded in targeting the Mossad building as well. So clearly the people know these buildings, especially if they live next to them. And if you haven't watched my previous video, this was the full video of the actual attack that came on the Mossad base and the Amman locations, the Glilot area, earlier on today by Iran. That happened in the morning. So again, Iran was keeping everyone on tenterhooks during the night, only for them to carry out an attack in the early hours of the morning. Again, a part of a strategy coming from Iran. And the Iranians today declare that they used missiles that they haven't used before. Let's have a look. So again, this was the attack that happened earlier today on the Mossad and Amman bases inside of Israel. Now, a lot of talk is happening and talks are still going ahead with the United States participating. And now there are more reports coming in. The head of the majority in the United States Senate, the Senate or the Congress, is saying that the United States president, no, he's the head of the Senate. He's saying that the United States president, Donald Trump, is practicing his authority in his actions against Iran. He's saying that if the United States wants to go ahead, then they can go ahead. Of course, other lawmakers try and say that they need to go through Congress too. But again, you know, with the United States, with these laws and emergency laws, anything to do with war and what have you, these governments, they have back doors to go to, even if it means bypassing certain laws and using emergency measures under any old excuse. There are draconian measures in the United States and in other countries too. Now, in a senior Israeli official, and mind you, this is very important. In Israel, when a senior Israeli official is quoted, usually the Israelis will know that we're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. However, a senior Israeli official could be anyone within the government, a senior official in the cabinet. But there was a report coming from the CNN based on a senior Israeli official saying that Israel is only now waiting on the decision of Donald Trump to participate in the war. There were also other reports in Israel that it could be within the next few hours, it could be tonight. Channel 12 in Israel said that the estimates in Tel Aviv are that the United States will be joining the war on Iran tonight. This is an estimate coming from the Israeli Channel 12. Now, seeing as that's already happening, and Donald Trump is threatening, I mean, it's not already happening in terms of Donald Trump confirming that he wants to join the war. Donald Trump still hasn't confirmed, but from an Iranian perspective, they are ready, because the Iranians, so far, they haven't targeted anything to do with the United States, but they are preparing to target United States bases in the region should the United States decide to go and participate against Iran. That's why what we're seeing from Iran now, by the way, are only like hints to what they can do, because from an Iranian perspective, they are preparing for an all-out and very, very long war. Therefore, they're not going to be conducting like these huge attacks all of a sudden. No, they're very, very calculated. They have been preparing for this for several decades. And if the United States decides to participate, that means Iran knows it could be a very long war. Because despite all of the statements that came from Donald Trump earlier on, that, and again, even yesterday, again, the French president said that he told the G7 that we're not going to participate with Israel. So all of this could be just, nonsense, but it would be naive and stupid, actually, to not take it seriously, especially if you're talking about the United States getting in, because it really could get out of hand. It could get really, really serious very, very quickly. Iran still hasn't targeted strategic bases in the region. Iran still hasn't shut down the Hormuz Strait, something that will affect the economy of the whole world. China still hasn't said what it will do if the United States attacks Iran. But again, with the Chinese, they're more action, less talk. Russians are already helping, but there would be expectations that there would be some action coming from Russia, especially with the level of significance in the Iranian support of Russia too. Nevertheless, they're still saying, and Israel is still estimating, that the United States will be participating, and it will be participating tonight. Now let's go to some of the other updates that I wanted to share with you in this live stream. One of the other things that I want to talk to you about, there were reports in Iran today that they took down 2 more Israeli fighter jets. And according to the reports coming from Iran, an F14 Tomcat, or what's labeled as the Persian Tomcat, managed to take down an F15 used by Israel. And they also said that they took down another F-35, and Iranian media is now confirming what I spoke with you about yesterday, of Iran declaring that they will be publishing some of the statements coming from the Israeli female pilot that is now captive in the hands of Iran. One Iranian previous diplomat who's close to the Iranian leadership, he said that Iran will be posting shocking information about where this woman refueled and where she traveled from as well. Now, more reports are coming from Israel about Trump participating in this war, with a recent article just published a couple of minutes ago on the Israeli Ynet, saying that Trump is indeed discussing participating with Israel in the attacks on Iran. And again, Other reports said it could be as soon as tonight, so within hours or, max by tomorrow. And that Iran will be attacking. They're preparing for Iran to attack US bases. Iran will be attacking US bases, possibly the Houthis too. After the small volleys to the south and center, several missiles were launched from Iran across the north. No reports of hits of casualties. Of course, that's Israeli media propaganda. We saw the missiles landing. US President intensifies tone towards Iran and convenes a White House debate. New York Times, the Iranians prepared a response in case the US military joins. Israel estimates it will happen soon. Netanyahu convenes a small team of ministers in a bunker. That's clearly a small cabinet meeting coming from Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, because all of the Israeli cabinet are now in bunkers. Now, from an Iranian perspective, the IRGC today, they also confirmed that they targeted military airfields in Israel that were being used to attack Iran. He said that the attacks of Iran will continue to be relentless, complex, multi-layered, and gradual. Note the wording: relentless, complex, multi-layered, and gradual. Why? Because clearly Iran is preparing for a very, very long war. They know that the United States can participate, or might likely participate very soon too, but they are prepared. Now, again, US lawmakers are saying that the Congress and the Congress alone has the power to declare war. Lawmakers from both parties are moving to limit Trump's ability to order US strikes on Iran. The lawmakers assert that only Congress has the authority to declare war under the Constitution. So they're trying to curb Donald Trump and his attempt to go into a war with Iran. Israeli media is now confirming as well that 1,800 people have been injured so far due to the attacks from Iran. 4.5 days, 1,800 people. Various reports of 40, 50, or 60 killed. And the Washington Post, that was one of the reports that I shared with you previously. Israel can intercept missiles for 12 days. The Washington Post, citing an Israeli intelligence assessment, Israel can only intercept missiles for 12 days and no longer than that. And according to that report as well, the United States does not have an infinite supply. As a matter of fact, on many of these air defense missiles, they're quite short as well. Now, Netanyahu, although he's saying there's a breakthrough in the ceasefire talks with Gaza, he's also saying now that if he attacks Iran, and if he's successful with the attack on Iran, that might also affect Hamas. Hamas will be affected very heavily if something happens with Iran. Again, a statement that really doesn't have a lot of basis, because the Palestinian resistance has been on its own in a besieged concentration camp for the past, apart from the fact that they had a siege from 2005, but in the genocide at least, the Palestinian resistance has been in a full-blown siege for 19 months, and they're still able to fight Israel. Much of what they're fighting Israel with, by the way, are some of the Israeli weapons that did not detonate. it is going to have nothing to do with the Palestinian resistance. Now let's move on to some more updates that are coming following the statement of Donald Trump of potentially participating, confirmations from Israel that it might happen with tonight. There have been huge social media campaigns, by the way, from Americans, those in the U.S. Army too as well, against this move. But clearly, if the United States president decides something, nothing is going to change that at the end of the day. And if you're joining me now, thank you so much for tuning in. We're covering all of the latest updates now with the recent dramatic confirmation that, or report that Donald Trump is seriously considering joining the war. Israel saying that it might happen within a few hours. Things are escalating heavily and very quickly. And if you haven't seen the came from earlier on, these were the missiles that Iran was launching in the latest attack on Israel. Now, latest updates coming in, because Israel was saying in the next few hours Trump will declare he's going to participate, but there have been a recent report coming from the CBC saying that the close circle of Donald Trump is not in agreement of him participating in the war with Iran. Clearly, and that has been obvious from a long time ago, but now they're confirming that again. Not everyone in the Trump administration are agreeing that he goes and participates in this war with Israel. And Israel is just saying now that they have monitored missiles being launched from Iran on Israel towards the north, the center, and the south of Israel. That's just breaking now, coming from Israel. They are waiting for missiles to land in north, central, and south Israel from Iran. Multiple Israeli media outlets were reporting that. So yeah, there are sirens now everywhere. Okay, so the Israeli army is saying that they're carrying out, at the same time that they're saying they're monitoring a wave of attacks coming from Iran, they're conducting attacks now in Iran. And for those of you who are just joining, thank you so much for tuning in again. For everyone who's been with us from the beginning, we're covering live all of the updates that are coming of the war between Israel and Iran, with the recent dramatic development and high likelihood now, according to Israeli sources, and the statements from Trump could also indicate that the United States will participate, and that's something that could increase the cycle to heights that were unimaginable before. Thank you everyone participating in the chat. Apache, MY, Academic, Sam, Michael, Denny, Lut, Mingla, thank you so much for your super, and everyone else participating in the chat. Okay, these are the areas now that are having Sirens in all of the northern parts, although the Israelis said that they monitored missiles coming to the central parts and the southern parts too. But so far, all of the Sirens are being heard in these areas. This is Kiryat Shmona, this is the occupied Golan Heights. These are the Lebanese borders. So the most northern parts. Iran already targeted the Meroon Air Base in the north. The Meroon Air Base is a surveillance base that is one of two main surveillance bases, by the way. The other one is in the south. The Meroon Air Base was targeted by Hezbollah previously, and it's in charge of monitoring and surveillance of the eastern part of the Mediterranean, including Turkey, Syria, the northern parts of Iraq and Iran as well. They're probably targeting it again, but also some of the targets might also be in Haifa due to its strategic importance. Khadeira, this is the Israeli power plant, is here. And one other base that they could be targeting is Ramat David, close to this area in Israel. So these are the latest Sirens that are coming from Iran. And these were the recent missile launches that came following the missile attack that was carried out previously. Again, these were the missiles that were being launched earlier on from Iran on Israel, with a confirmation now that another missile attack that has been carried out on Israel from Iran. No reports yet about any of the actual missiles landing. Again, Israel is Israel is confirming that 15 missiles. Initial reports that areas in central Israel and in the Jerusalem area, there were landings confirmed in those areas. And Israel said it monitored 15 missiles. They said they intercepted all of them. Again, that you cannot confirm that really, because they're preventing any live coverage. So any sort of coverage that we can have is basically gonna have to come from people. Okay, some media outlets are posting some images that they're saying these are live scenes from Tel Aviv. Let's have a look at this video here.
اللهم سدد يا الله اللهم سدد يا الله يا رب.
Can't confirm if this is from now or before, but this is what one channel was reporting now. But there's no confirmation that this is from the recent attack that happened. But what Israel did confirm is that several missiles landed in the central part of Israel and in Jerusalem. Not many missiles were aimed at Jerusalem from Iran, by the way. Most of the missiles were aimed at Haifa and the Tel Aviv area, unless Iran is having new targets now. Now, another thing that I wanted to tell you about is today there were recordings and there was evidence coming from the attacks that Iran carried out against the Mossad HQs and the Israeli Amman HQs as well. There were reports in Israel about a very bad smell. Some people said that they smell something that is very, very harsh. So the Israeli authorities, they ordered people to stay in their shelters for several hours, and then they let them out. That could indicate that Iran was targeting sensitive locations or laboratories, for example, inside of Israel, but Israel did not really elaborate too much about that. And again, they're denying, by the way, that any of the Mossad bases or the Amman HQs were hit, although again there were videos of them. If you haven't seen the video, let me share it again with you. So that was from the previous attack on the Mossad headquarters and the Amman headquarters earlier in Glilot. But now we have more videos coming from the recent attacks that are happening inside of Israel, from the attack that's happening tonight from Iran. And this is the first image that's coming live from Tel Aviv. This is the first image that the Israelis are taking. And the claim is that the Israeli Iron Dome failed to intercept this missile. There's also a video. Let me share the video with you of the fire from that area. So these are the scenes live from now. This was just published several minutes back from the attacks that Iran conducted against Israel. Several missiles landed in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem. And this is the first video that's coming in from tonight. And there's another video of the missile in the air. Let's have a look.
بسرعة. الآن أول الصواريخ خصل بسرعة.
And this is a clearer video of the whole thing. Okay, now we have evidence that the whole Israeli story is a lie, because there are more videos coming out of several missiles landing with no interception. So there was another video just being published now by people from occupied Palestine. Let me share this video with you.
יפה. מופע קולי. שדרות היפהפייה. וואו. וואו, זה כמו כוכבים נופלים. איזה שקט זה.
So that was another video, again showing several missiles landing, by the way, not just one. Okay, guys, we'll go on a short break. I'll keep sharing some of these videos with you. And when I come back, I'm going to be talking to you about the latest escalation between Israel and Turkey. We just had a report coming out in the past hour about an Israeli aircraft violating Turkish airspace. You've heard that right. An Israeli aircraft violating Turkish airspace, and Turkish and Israeli fighter jets scrambling. That's coming from multiple sources. I'm going to share that bit with you. So stay tuned. For our mods, please make sure that all of our viewers know that we will be back in this coverage. And I will share that with you. And of course, we'll continue to cover the whole of the live stream tonight. In the meantime, I will leave you with the latest video that was coming from the missiles that were landing in Tel Aviv. So stay tuned, and I will be with you shortly. Okay, guys, if you're just tuning in, welcome back. I have more videos for you. Just had a lot more videos coming of the recent missiles that landed in Israel. Israel, again, clearly lied in their mainstream media. They said they intercepted most of them. But what we can see here is a failed Iron Dome missile going up and landing on Israel. This is the fifth video, or the fifth time, to be more accurate, in 2 days that we have a recorded failure coming from the Iron Dome. Yesterday, 2 missiles landed in Nevatim, 1 landed in Tel Aviv, and this is another Iron Dome missile landing in Tel Aviv. Clearly, the Iranians have either hacked into the system and they have some sort of control over it, or they have sabotaged it. Because the amount of failures coming from the Iron Dome is in the past 2 days is unbelievable. I mean, we knew it failed previously, but the level of failure is very severe, a huge failure. Let me show you, so we can have this from another angle. So this was one of the angles. Look at this. This is another angle of this failure. And Israel is confirming that this missile is causing a huge fire, by the way. This Iron Dome missile that failed is causing a large fire in the Tel Aviv area. This is the same one that I shared here. Let me share a couple of other videos with you. So this is another angle of that failure. Look at this. Again, the missile going up and landing on Israel. 5th time in 2 days. 2 of them landed in Nevatim yesterday, 1 in Tel Aviv, 1 or 2 in Tel Aviv, and then that's another one here. And then there was another video that was similar to the one that I just showed you. So it looks like Iran is doing something with the Israeli Iron Dome, and people took images as well of this. Look at that. It did a nice shape, though, to be fair. I mean, the shape is nice, right? Launching Iron Dome, falling on Israel. These were the moments when the missiles landed. Let me share this with you quickly. So again, the Israeli media lied again, as usual. They said they saw 15 missiles and they intercepted most of them. Clearly not the case. And more videos are coming now of the recent missile attack from Iran. Let's have a look.
Shit.
Clearly landing, clearly more than one. I'll show you as well. Yeah, this was a view of the barrage of missiles landing or on their way to land. Have a look at this.
זה יפה. מופע קולי. שדרות היפהפייה. וואו.
No interception, no nothing. I mean, we haven't seen anything of an interception. Now, moving on to the breaking report that I just wanted to share with you, that I told you that I'm going to share with you before we went out on a short break, is this article here from Al-Mayadeen talking about an Israeli aircraft violating Turkish airspace. This article over here. Now, in Israeli media, there was a journalist saying that we got rid of Hamas, we're getting rid of Iran, and then the next step is to go and get rid of Turkey. Now, some people in Israel started to, criticize Turkey. We don't want a war with Turkey, but this is showing that there's a clear agenda. There's an agenda to target Turkey, and it might escalate to that level. Because at the end of the day, you're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu has no limits. He's going to Iran. He'll probably go to Pakistan afterwards, and he'll go to other countries as well. Turkish fighter jets were scrambled after Israeli warplanes reportedly violated Turkish airspace, prompting an immediate military response and raising alert levels all across the country, according to a report published by Turkey's Doğru Haber newspaper. The report said that Turkish F-16s were launched to intercept the Israeli aircraft, issuing multiple radio warnings that ultimately forced the Israeli warplanes to retreat from Turkish airspace. The Turkish armed forces also reportedly increased surveillance across the eastern frontier, activating round-the-clock early warning systems to monitor any renewed breach. It looks like things are going to get out of hand, I'm telling you. It looks like everything is going to explode. Doğru Haber described the incident as a serious escalation, warning that the ongoing war, previously confined to the occupied Palestinian territories and Iran, now poses a direct threat to Turkey's national security. The newspaper further suggested that the violation may have been a deliberate act to test Ankara's air defense readiness, perhaps. Russian President Vladimir Putin, in a phone call with Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan, discussed the latest geopolitical developments, particularly after Israel launched its war against Iran. So, Israel violating Turkish airspace. That's what we have now. We're looking at potentially, that's it, World War III. There was another report from a Turkish media outlet as well that the Americans told the Turks about Israel's intention to conduct an attack against Iran, and the Turks let the Iranians know. Turkey let Iran know before the attack happened. Now, of course, you might argue Trump already made this whole move of, withdrawing the staff and what have you from the region, which was a clear indication that something was about to happen. Nevertheless, Israel told the United States, and the United States told Turkey. Turkey then told Iran. So Iran had prior knowledge about this attack. But this is showing that we're looking at something potentially bigger than just what's happening now. More images coming from the damage of the Iranian attack earlier tonight. There were fires breaking out. But again, this could be due to the Israeli air defenses that fell on Israel, because the Iron Dome failed again and missiles were landing on Israel. This was one of the images that was published. But the fires in the area. And in case you haven't seen the failure, I'll share it with you here in this video. Have a look. Again, huge failure coming from the Iron Dome missiles landing on Israel. And again, Israel officially, they're confirming that they intercepted the majority of the missiles. Explosions heard. Most of them were intercepted. Okay. There's an article, let me share this article with you about the American participation, according to reports from Israeli media and the New York Times too. And again, remember, all of what we're hearing now about the United States participating, all of that could be an act, all of that could be garbage, nothing, up until something happens. Nevertheless, part of the, the duty is to kind of read what's happening. So, let me actually share this failure video in the background. It would be nice to share in the background. Hold on a second. Yeah, failure in the background, and then we will share the article. Okay. An extensive report by the New York Times describes the complex relationship between Prime Minister and the United States President and Israel's attempts to convince the Americans to join the attack, from the doubts in the White House through the pressure exerted on Israel to the moment when Trump was impressed by the Israeli military sophistication. Sophistication in butchering infants and children, of course, I mean, the United States Army, it has its history too. The quotes from the closed meetings, the race for the credit, the letter sent to Khamenei, the Pentagon's contingency plans, and was the president involved in the fraud operation? In this article, they're saying towards the end of May, American intelligence agencies that monitored Israel's military activity and discussions among the Israeli political echelon reached a decisive conclusion. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is planning an imminent attack against Iran's nuclear program, with or without the help of the United States. New York Times reported this evening, Wednesday, meaning Benjamin Netanyahu was planning to attack Iran without even telling the Americans, according to that report. Netanyahu has warned against Iran for a long time and urged the need for an attack against the Iranian nuclear program for more than a decade, but he backed down when recent US presidents made it clear to him that they would not join the attack, according to the Times. However, this time, American intelligence says that Netanyahu was ready to go it alone on the attack, and moreover, on a significant attack against the Islamic Republic's nuclear project. Since his return to the White House, US President Donald Trump has striven to find a diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue, including negotiations with the Iranians. And therefore, the assessments he received from the intelligence agencies left him with a difficult dilemma. Netanyahu tried to convince him to attack as early as April, and last month, the two also had a tense phone call in which Trump warned against a unilateral Israeli attack. However, according to the conversations cited in the Times with key figures involved in the administration's deliberations and thinking, it has become increasingly clear that Trump administration in recent weeks that this time American pressure may not be enough to stop Netanyahu. At the same time, the president has begun to grow disappointment with Tehran due to the slow pace at which negotiations were over the nuclear deal and their process, and he has begun to conclude the talks are leading nowhere. Contrary to Israeli claims, Washington assessed that Iran was not close to obtaining a nuclear weapon. This is what we shared with you before, by the way. And officials in the Trump administration had not recently received a new intelligence about Tehran's intention to develop a bomb. However, Trump's team understood that either way, they could not be able to stop Netanyahu. They felt that they were losing control of the situation and therefore began to examine alternatives. On one hand, there was the option not to intervene and standing on the sidelines. And on the other hand, there was the option to join Israel in attack, perhaps to the point of overthrowing the Iranian regime. In the end, Trump chose the middle ground. The Times wrote, he offered Israel intelligence assistance in preparing for the attack, but also exerted political pressure on Iran to compromise on the terms of the negotiations while issuing frequent threats of the fate that awaited it if it refused. At first, the administration tried to disavow the operation, but as the achievements of the attack became clear, public support from the United States increased until today it was reported that Israel estimated that the United States is expected to soon join the attacks against Iran, that the Americans are transferring fighter jets to the Middle East. Again, Israel previously said the United States could declare participation within hours. The Times noted that the conversations with more than 20 officials in the US, Israel, and the Gulf states showed that Trump has been debating for months whether to curb Netanyahu's desire to take military action against Iran in the midst of the first diplomatic crisis of Trump's second term, when he was surrounded by new and loyal but inexperienced advisors. On June 8, Trump met with his top advisors at the presidential retreat at Camp David to discuss the escalation between Israel and Iran, developments in the region. Two sources familiar with the matter said that the CIA Director John Ratcliffe provided the president with a firm assessment that Israel would strike the Islamic Republic in the near future, with or without the United States. The president's advisors had been preparing for this moment a long time. U.S. Chief of Staff Dan Kane presented Trump with maps he had prepared, and for 2.5 hours, he and Ratcliffe reviewed the assessment that Israel would attack soon. J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who also serves as Trump's national security advisor, sought to provide the president with a range of options so that he can make a quick decision at the moment of truth. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who is considered an opponent of an Israeli attack on Iran, was not in that discussion. She's the same woman who told him that the Iranians are not developing nuclear weapons. And according to the report, they were preparing a menu of alternatives. And after that meeting in the Camp David with Trump and his officials, Trump spoke with Netanyahu. And according to three sources familiar with the conversation, Prime Minister was unequivocal in his words. The operation is underway. Netanyahu outlined Israel's operational plans in detail to the president, making it clear that Israel already had forces on Iranian soil. Trump was impressed by the sophistication of the Israeli military planning, the sources said, but did not commit to Netanyahu's assistance. After the call ended, the president told his advisors, I think we're going to have to help him. That's from that meeting before they attacked. However, the president was no longer unequivocal about his next moves and continued to consult with his associates. He wanted to manage the Iranian issue on his terms, not Netanyahu's, and believed in his negotiating skills. Gradually, as mentioned, he became convinced that the Iranians were pulling him by the nose. Trump was consistent in his approach against the Iranians in the nuclear issue, and more than once stated that they must not have a nuclear weapon. According to the Times, he told the advisors that Netanyahu will do what is necessary to defend his country. Trump, as mentioned, preferred a long way to find diplomatic solutions to the nuclear issue, He appointed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff through Omani mediation. Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held several rounds of negotiations, which have so far yielded no results. What they're not mentioning here is the fact that Donald Trump initially, well, he was saying that even if we don't reach a deal, I guess that's fine from an American perspective. Secondly, Donald Trump also did not have a problem with Iran enriching uranium. Donald Trump started to have a problem with Iran enriching uranium after the Zionist lobby pressure. Again, that's not an excuse. Like for some of the Americans who are saying, oh yeah, Israel, it's influence. That's not an excuse. It's your country at the end of the day. If you have that influence, it's your duty to get rid of that influence. What is your, president working for a different country or whatever? Despite the fact that there's an argument that it's a two-way thing. Then they're describing the fact that he sacked Mike Waltz, who actually wanted a war in Iran, hinting that, well, he had an interest in taking people off who want to have a war with Iran. And the previous messages. In March, Trump sent a letter to Iran's leader, Ali Khamenei. Person who heard from the president about the contents of the letter described the message as follows: I don't want war. I don't want to wipe you off the map. Wow, that's such a gentle letter. I want peace. However, Trump did seem to be convinced by a prominent message that Israel conveyed to him that having credible military options would strengthen his position with Iran in the negotiations. Israel, at the end of the day, they're made for war. In essence, they're not confirming everything, well, whether he will or not. But the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump just recently made some statements at the end of the day that, well, show that he is open to that option. Vance, according to this report, is trying to limit the American involvement. However, how likely would that be? Again, nothing is confirmed. But the Israelis seem more confident than previous times that the Americans will be participating. If not in the next hours, then in the next few days. Now we have a bit more. There's another new video, a new video here for the missile landing. From the attack in Tel Aviv, you can see it exploding as well, alongside other missiles too. And again, this is the failed interception of the iron foam or nylon dome, whatever you want to call it. It seems like also the Iranian supreme leader is preparing the ground for something bigger too. We had this post of the Iranian supreme leader saying, "The battle begins in the name of Haidar Ali with the Zulfiqar sword has returned to open the gate of Khaybar." That means there's something serious. I think if Sayyid Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says that, that means it's no joke. So something serious is about to happen. Look, the head of the IRGC, I told you, they said basically we're still joking up until now. As in, you know, we're still basically just deterring, you know. We still haven't used the severe stuff, though. Who knows where things could reach. Fires are erupting in the meantime following the Iranian missile attacks. In multiple parts. And Iran just released the footage of the missiles they used towards Israel. Let's have another look here. So again, this is the latest attack, latest missile launches coming from the Iranians on Israel. Israel is now saying that 25 missiles actually landed or were launched at Israel, clearly proving the sites that were seen with basically dozens of missiles in the air. Because initially they said it was only 10 to 15, and most of them were intercepted. Ronan David, Faint F, The Alchemist, Ali, Denise, and everyone else who we mentioned before, thank you so much for your support, much appreciated. Denise is asking me about the expected position of Russia and China in 0 hour, as in when they have to participate. Well, I think it would be foolish of them to reveal anything that they plan. That's number one. I think there's still a lot to go in relation to the developments between Israel and Iran already. Iran is more than capable to hurt Israel really badly. It's Israel that's in a really tough position, because although Israel had successes in what it wanted to achieve, for example, in assassinating certain figures or targeting some of the nuclear sites, again, assuming that these nuclear sites have what Israel wants in them, that's the argument. It's Israel that needs the United States more than Iran needs Russia and China, by the way. Because Iran has already been preparing when China and Russia weren't really that close with Iran. Don't forget the Russian position with Iran. It wasn't the same in the beginning of the 2000s and stuff. But these countries started to form a closer bond together because they realized that the Western establishment treats all of them the same, with hostility, with arrogance, with supremacy, and trying to dictate what they do. And in many cases, control them. Like they have genuine interest to take over a United States hegemony and its proxies, you know, the Western Empire. Now, I believe the fiercest response, or the most effective response, even if it wouldn't necessarily be too visible, as in the most effective one, would be from the Chinese. Because the Chinese really need Iran. Iran is the biggest oil exporter to China. China does not want to lose them. And the United States would love to control Iran so they can choke China. So that when a crazy, arrogant, egocentric individual like Donald Trump comes to power and decides he wants to go on a trade war with China, he can tell you, I can cut the whole supplies off them. That's what would happen. China knows that and doesn't want to be in that situation. Now, when will they participate and when is the 0 hour? I mean, that's, of course, the main question. No one really knows. But what we do know is that there's still some way to go. Even if we want to talk about the United States participation. Let's say the United States participates. To what extent will the United States participate? Will the United States participate in all its military force, or will they allow Israel, to begin with, will they allow Israel, for example, to use its bunker busters, the B-52s and B-2 Spirits, for example, that Israel so desperately needs to attack Fordo, according to their claims. There's levels to it. So a more effective Chinese support, in my opinion, than Russia, because Russia has been at war basically with the US and NATO for the past several decades. They have been trying to defend themselves from this NATO expansion for a very long time. And they have been, in effect, facing NATO in Europe. They will, of course, and they have supported Iran, but they're still at war. Doesn't mean they're not going to, of course they will. In my opinion, the red line is basically Iran falling, Iran collapsing. And I think they will not want that. And I think it would be a very stupid strategic move of them if they don't participate. Because let's say, for example, both China and Russia, they don't have a problem if, for example, you change who's controlling Iran, like what Israel's claiming. How can you ensure that? The establishment, Iran is solid as a rock. Every establishment has opposition. Every country on earth, it has an opposition. Of course, the enemies of Iran will try and make it bigger than it actually is. The establishment has firm support. And it's working on reforms. As a matter of fact, Pezeshkian himself is a reformist. But from a Chinese perspective, they know that the West, they're not interested in like human rights or democracy or all of that nonsense that some imbeciles believe, by the way. They want a puppet regime that will submit to the American hegemony and start worshiping the Zionists and their proxies in the West. That's what they want from Iran. That's why they're attacking Iran, because Iran is independent, it's strong, it has a rich history. And let me tell you something, and that's an observation from me. The Israelis, the Zionists in specific, they have a lot of envy and a lot of jealousy from other countries succeeding. That's why they want to take everything down. Exceptional arrogance, and they have a lot of envy. They even envy the people of Gaza if they eat bread. That's why they constantly break the ceasefire and kill people when they go to get flour. They don't want anything good for anyone around them. However, let's see if the United States participates first and foremost. Because again, Trump is unpredictable. He is a loudmouth. He babbles a lot. And he talks too much garbage in many cases, to be honest with you. And thank you for that question. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to open the space up for some questions before, because I was planning to finish up soon. And Gen X, thank you very much. And also Sovereign Citizen as well. Thank you very much. And Qusay, also the same question. Why is China, Russia not doing more to intervene? It's because they take it step by step. They see how much things will evolve, where things will expand to. Because they know Iran is capable. They know Iran is very capable. And plus, if we want to talk about intervention, it's what we're seeing. Like intervention doesn't have to be visible. It's not smart for the intervention to be visible and all, because you will let your opponents know what you're doing, or your enemies. But nevertheless, we already saw Chinese planes going, didn't we, in the past couple of days? But active participation would really depend on the United States participation, what the United States is going to do. And that was from Qusay as well. Thank you very much for that. And NY said, I'm not a psychiatrist, but aside from Trump's usual display of personality disorders, narcissism, pathological lying, am I picking up on some mania? Totally, absolutely legit, to be honest with you, because like he's a pathological liar. And the man does so many 180s. If any of you have any more questions, by the way, I'll be more than happy to take some of the questions, but you need to highlight them if you wouldn't mind, please. As in with something like a red sign or something. And Saqdi, thank you as well. Will you show us the Israeli pilots when Iran? Yeah, if they do, I'll actually show it as soon as possible. Anonymous Gaza update today. Israel killed 100 people in Gaza. Most of them were going to get the aid. The Palestinian resistance still carrying out operation against Israel. It reports that Israel withdrew the Division 98, and Netanyahu saying that there's a significant breakthrough to get to a ceasefire in Gaza. In short, Sayyida, Iran is going to test its nukes. Again, Iran never confirmed that it has nukes. But if Iran is pushed to the corner, then they probably would be able to obtain nukes. But again, nukes are not really to be used. They're there to scare, mostly. Stephen Kelly, will Egypt stay silent? And thank you for that, Sayyid, and thank you for your moderation as well. Stephen Kelly, will Egypt stay silent? Egypt is not interested in participating. And I think the foolish thing about the Arab states and other countries relevant, really, is the fact that they think they can be passive. They think that they can be passive and get away with it. Your turn is coming. You saw that report today earlier on about this Israeli fighter jets invading Turkish airspace. Turkey, a NATO member, allied with the US, they don't care, these people. But Egypt won't do anything unless Egypt is directly attacked. Prepared undeniably. Do they want war? They definitely don't want war. Look, Iran didn't really want war, but you saw what happened. Israel was starting to poke them because, of course, Iran is also more proactive. Iran is the bravest country in the region. Iran stands firmly with the Palestinian people outright and supports the Palestinian people and the Palestinian resistance. That's why they pay the price from the Zionists and their slaves. But if you don't do anything, saying that, there is an opportunity because Israel still has an interest in Sinai. Don't think that Israel forgot Sinai. And Benny, thank you. You said, didn't Iran send drones to Russia? Yes, they did. Petro trade with China? Yes. Hopefully China, Russia, and BRICS supports them. A multipolar world would be good. It absolutely would be good. And I think that if it reaches that stage, then they will. Love, peace, good vibes, new subscriber, enlightened by your views. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you for your super. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone else as well participating. Terry Lynn Nelson, what about Pakistan? I think Pakistan, and thank you, Terry. I think Pakistan would be one of the first countries to participate if things start to get ugly with Iran. If things start to get ugly with Iran, Pakistan knows that it's... Israel hates Pakistan. Israel hates Pakistan, and they consider Pakistan to be a very dangerous country because it's a Muslim country and it's a nuclear country. From a Pakistani perspective, well, the defense minister made it very clear, if the Muslim world is not going to unite now, then the turn is going to come on all of us one by one. But again, you are faced with typical Arab regime stupidity and ignorance. Most of the Arab countries are interested in, eating and enjoying a luxurious life, thinking that they can get away with it. If there was any Arab position, proper Arab position, Wouldn't have been here. Look at Jordan now. They're intercepting missiles over Jordan, almost killing Jordanian people. The Arab states are, or the majority of the Arab establishments are the biggest problem. Because if they had a proper position, none of that would have happened. And now we can clearly see they are the protectors. Most of the Arab states are the guard dogs of Israel. If Iran had a good, I mean, look, there are changes. Don't get it from like it's like all of them. No, not all of them are the same, and not all of them to the same level. And there are some who are changing. Nevertheless, the official Arab establishment is abhorrent. Peter, if Turkey shoots down a Zionist jet, will NATO have to go to war against the Zionist supporters of Turkey? No, they wouldn't have to. Because Turkey took down a Russian jet in 2016. That later the Turkish president apologized for. It doesn't mean they automatically have to. They have a defense pact, but again, the NATO is more torn than ever. Like NATO member states, can they agree on everything in foreign policy? No, they can't. Some people think that the NATO is like one thing. No. They have a lot of differences in between them. But no, what's for sure is the traditional Western establishment will side with Israel. I mean, you can see small cracks here and there, but still to this day, even after all of the genocide and the murder, they're still standing with Israel. But Netanyahu is making it more difficult and more challenging for the Western establishments, because from his point of view, they're going to support me and I need to do whatever I want. So he's a blatant Zionist. Generally, the Zionists are, we thrive in the dark type of thing. But Netanyahu, especially ever since his alliance with Ben Gvir and Smotrich, has become, the blatant Zionist who reveals everything, which has been a catastrophe for Israel, by the way, and its allies. Perceived reality. Hi, Mahmoud. The most dangerous enemy is the enemy within. Iran, yes, they have a problem. Iran needs to search for traitors and search for those who commit acts of sabotage. What are your thoughts? I totally agree. And they have so far. They're taking a lot of people. Many of them are foreign, by the way. So some of them came from Afghanistan. Some of them were based in Iran too. I would assume that some of them don't know who exactly they're operating for. But Iran has revealed significant numbers of networks recently. But clearly they had planned this for a very long time. Like they're asking people in Iran to light tires up, to cause fires, to create more havoc, handing some people grenades and stuff. Iran is very active on the borders, by the way. Pakistan offered help with the borders because the border is a very big problem if Israel has or... And by the way, who's Israel most likely using, by the way? Israel would possibly use some of these organizations similar to ISIS. That wouldn't be surprising, like they're doing in Gaza. But clearly there's a problem. However, I think that problem, some people try and exaggerate it too much, because even with that, okay, if you assassinate certain figures, that is an accomplishment at the end of the day. In war, you don't stop what's coming at you. And if we speak about it only because there are political terms, there are military terms, if you talk about from military terms, what's Netanyahu's objective? Get rid of Iran's nuclear program. He has 3 objectives: eliminate their strategic missile capabilities, and also take down the establishment. So long as he doesn't achieve any of them, he's a failure. Like he's a failure in Gaza. Netanyahu is a massive failure, and he's leading Israel into its doom end. That's it, doomsday. Netanyahu is leading Israel into oblivion. Many people warned him, and it doesn't matter what he does with Iran, even if the United States participate. What is the United States going to do? Did you see the parade of the American army the other day? What are they going to do? Bombs? Okay, you land bombs. And do you see how big Iran is? Come on. Taliban were giving them hell from Tora Bora, from the mountains for 20 years. Imagine what Iran can do for them. Bujar, Mahmoud, Iran has been the only country in history freely attacking the US each time they made a mistake. Imagine now. They have the capacity, but again, I don't think they're interested in expanding in Iran. But I think Iran knows that it might reach a point where there's no return. The ball is in Trump's hands. The Iranians are very reasonable and wise and calculated with their response. And if Donald Trump decides to break everything, they wouldn't have a problem. But again, they are acting in a very responsible manner. Their responses are calculated. They were dragged into this. They were attacked by a terrorist, genocidal, supremacist entity called Israel, supported by other terrorist regimes in the West, by the way, who committed far worse crimes than Israel. And they are responding, a fully legitimate response. You might argue it's too, they can do a little bit more. Everyone can argue everything. But at the end of the day, it's their country. They have their calculations, and they are responsible for the lives of people. And they know better than, observers on the level of response. And I think so far, it's been reasonable. I mean, if Israel would get a like for like, everything would be flat now. As a matter of fact, if anyone threatened Israel with a similar response to what they did in Gaza, they wouldn't have done what they did because they can't handle it. But Iran is giving them a slap after a slap, reality check after reality check, slap, punch here and there. But it doesn't look like they're going to get the reality check. The only reality check that they're going to end is when they're done and dusted. Everything gaming, if Israel nukes Iran, will anyone nuke Israel back? I think that would be a very big possibility because Iran would be able, if it wants, to obtain a nuclear bomb. And yeah, it could be the case. Kitty, is the support for Israel chiefly a result of money from AIPAC and worldwide partners to various governments, politicians? That's part of it, but also a big part of it is the fact that Israel is a Western colonialist establishment creation at the end of the day. Israel isn't what it portrays itself to be, the nation state of the Jewish people. That's all propaganda. Israel and Zionism as a movement originated in the West, in Western movements. And it was convenient for them to plant it there to divide the Arab world and also be a front guard dog of Western hegemony. That's why Israel is there, and that's why Western countries are trying to protect it, or Western establishments, to be more specific, because Western populations can't wait for the day that they would be completely gone, and that's it. So that, alongside the blackmailing rings and all of that, the money, AIPAC, all of it is interlinked. But I think there's a very big attempt from Western establishments to try and portray it as if, you know, Israel is its own thing, so they can cover up their own complicity and participation in creating the problem. Britain, at the end of the day, created the problem. The United States is sponsoring it. Today, the Nazi Chancellor of Germany said Israel is doing the dirty work for us. Nazism didn't end. It's just, you know, changed suits and removed the mustache. They're still there. Same ideology, same beliefs. So it's not just the influence. I think some people, and some even intellectuals, try and oversimplify it by saying that, you know, oh, it's actually, they're controlling us. That's why. No. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Janice, what will happen to with global oil prices? They'll go high. I mean, some places they are already going high, especially if Iran decides to shut down the Hormuz Strait, which would be a very extreme move in extreme circumstances. But again, I'm telling you, the Iranians are responsible. It's not like they're going to do it all of a sudden. But again, Western governments and Western leaders are reckless. Many Western leaders and Western governments and establishments are reckless, arrogant, and they support global instability by constantly poking countries and creating problems and supporting terrorist organizations. Is this likely to accelerate the genocide? The people in Gaza are being killed every single day. So it's not really changing much. The only thing it's changing is the Israeli military is removing troops from Gaza. So that could have some sort of an impact. But still, people are being killed. Do you know any defensive system against US bombers? Any chance Russia could help stop bombers? Well, if they took down F-35s, then they have a good chance to take down the what they call the stealth bombers. I mean, the F-35 is supposed to be a stealth bomber too. And I'm sure that the Russians and the Chinese would help them. There's already technology from Russia and China there too. Tony, how many missiles, total waves of missiles has Iran launched? 10 so far. Does US fleet pass Yemen on the way to Israel? USS Carl Vinson is still supposedly in the north of the Red Sea. They're bringing the Nimitz from the South China Sea, that area, to the region. But I don't think that's going to make a big difference. Because what the United States needs to attack Iran is already in the bases around Iran and in a small island not very far away. An aircraft carrier would be a liability. It wouldn't be, because Yemen, look at what they've done to the aircraft carriers of the, they expelled 4 of them. Imagine what can Iran do. Okay, we'll wrap it up there for tonight, guys. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. I might be, during the day, I might have a video or a live stream if necessary, apart from the live stream in the night, to give you all of the coverage. Like today, I had a video in the morning as well because of the surprise attack in the morning of Iran. I had to talk about that quickly. So if something develops from tonight till tomorrow, I'll be with you to keep you in the loop. In the meantime, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for another live stream to cover everything related to the Israeli-Iranian war, and of course, the genocide in Gaza, all of the developments in West Asia as well. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you again for tuning in, everyone. Thank you for everyone who participated in the chat, for your comments as well. Everyone who sent supers, thank you very much for your support, and members as well. Servan, Lebanon, Servan again, Danielle, Tony, Hermitage, Love, Peace, Terry, Midoriya, Scorpion, Benny, Sakdi, Sovereign, Jen, Kosai, Donna, F, Ronin, David, Faint, F, Alchemist, Timuri, Ali Haidar, Denise, Mingla, Lut, Denny, Michael, Sam, Insubordinate, Academic, MY, and Apache. Thank you all, and I'm sorry if I missed anyone. Thank you everyone else who also participated in the chat. Thank you very much for your participation. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. If you're regular to my channel, I'm having more live streams than videos, and I'm not having a lot of segments. But that, of course, could change, but depending on the developments. If you're new to my channel, I have both videos and live streams too. Usually, I will have a lot of segments of the live streams too to make it easier for people who want clips. But now I'm having more live streams, but a combination of two. You can check that on the tab in the channel. Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up here. Another eventful night. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night, day, or evening, depending on where you are. And I'll hopefully see you tomorrow with another video and live stream. Peace, everyone. Salam.